We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're talking about a proposed gas compression station. Gosh, what's that all about? It's a big issue here for a lot of people that live in the area of Nashville that, they're thinking about putting this in. There's a fight. The locals going up against the feds and this company. Bill Robertson's involved with it, Concerned Citizens for Safe Environment. He's worried something's going to explode, destroying his house. Pipeline, literally. Explosions. Is that it? Would you
I'm only worried, as I said, I think the gas pipelines, if they are well maintained, they are relatively safe.
Okay,
and so
but this new giant compressor.
The compressor worries me because
how far will that be from your house?
It'll be about 2 miles from my house.
Okay.
And so it's down the line of ways. There's a lot of my neighbors who are much closer.
Much closer, yeah.
And we're worried about it. It is a big industrial. It is a factory that basically moves gas through the pipeline, and it is a factory. It's got big engines that run. It gives out emissions. You don't put a factory, next to houses, next to an organic. The person who started this owns a farm across the road that's very close to it. And she's worried that they're concerned about organic farming practices that they use in the this is going to impact them, the emissions. I mean, we've talked about air emissions. There's leaking. There's into water.
Have they filed lawsuit? Aren't there some lawsuits filed?
There's a lawsuit over the permit.
Okay, over the permit, right?
The permit, and this is, and we're lucky to have Nick Leonardo, who's doing pro bono.
We should say is our legal analyst here.
That's right. That's right. I've seen him, and so he's doing this pro bono for us. The permit, again, they have a whole bunch of permits, and this was the TDEC permit, I believe. They were issued a general permit. A general permit says that there doesn't have to be any public hearings. It's basically a go. You're fine to go. On the day that when our group got word of this, somebody contacted the permit issuing office and said, we're concerned about this. We want to make sure that it gets looked at carefully. And the office said, we don't have any record of it. That nothing's been filed yet. That was in the morning. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, a general permit had been issued to the gas pipeline. And so we're suing to say that that is not the appropriate permit. That should be an individual permit, which means the individual permit would mean that we could have public hearings. And again, Kinder Morgan has not been transparent in this at all.
But when this all came down, before you became aware of it, they had already gone through the proper channels at the federal level to get approval. They had bought this land. The land's been purchased.
They bought the land.
Who owned the land prior to that?
I don't know. It's in the record somewhere.
But they had purchased a private landowner. They had purchased this. They went through the proper steps. Now you guys have discovered this. You're battling. And again, I think it's the classic case sometimes, the locals battling a company that wants to do something and with the feds involved. Now, I'm sure you've done your homework. I asked you this during the break about elsewhere. They've wanted to put these in before, and I assume some other communities have battled it. Has there been much success in turning them back once this ball gets rolling?
I think FERC has a record, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has a record of voting something like 99% of the time with the gas pipeline companies.
The gas pipeline.
But we think that that is weakening. I think the original intent, this is all regulated by something called the National Gas Act that was passed in 1938, and it was to make sure that nobody interfered with gas that was going to be used in the U.S. In other words, utility gas. People who needed gas to heat their homes, they wanted to make sure they could transport it from one part of the country to another. This is a different use. This is for export. This is not for... And so... up in Minisink, New York, there was a place, a very similar one, where they wanted the community was objecting because the compressor station, a much smaller compressor station, I should say, was being put into what was considered an agricultural residential area, very similar to what we had. And for one of the first times, the vote was split 3-2. So 3 said yes on this is the 5 commissioners on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It split 3-2. 2 of the commissioners said, no, this is not the right place to put this. So there is some idea that FERC is maybe looking at this a little bit more carefully, and there is a chance that they will look at us with a much bigger compressor station in a similar, in fact, I think we are a more residential. The one in Minisink, when I looked at it, it was further away from houses than we are. So
now, have they already voted once to allow it, and it has to go back to them?
No. FERC has not voted on this. This process is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing, but had you not voiced your objections, it would have probably gone to FERC, and without them hearing, they may have just gone ahead and said, decided, well, okay, it looks like this is a go-ahead, but now they're going to be able to hear, at least they'll become aware of these issues, right?
Yes. And you know, as I said, this zoning ordinance is very important because it's the first step in sort of letting them know that the community here is against this, and this is not a good site. You know, it is too residential. It's next to a city park. It's, you know, all these issues that we've mentioned before. There's businesses there, people who board horses. There are these events called blowdown events where they release large volumes of gas when they have to do maintenance on the system. Yeah. And it's like a jet aircraft taking off, and they if you a whole bunch of things. YouTube is our wonderful thing to find things out, where you go to YouTube and you find that people who have a compressor station built, the first time you know, one of these blowdown events, their horses you know, run through the fences, impale themselves on the fences because they're just panicked to get away. And so, you know, that's...
Well, the big picture, too, you wonder, is as we've seen just huge growth here in Nashville, and it's growing out and moving about. I mean, that's an area that's growing. I mean, it has the potential for more, you know, obviously, you know, as we run out of places to live downtown here, it's just getting so jam-packed, people moving out. The growth there. I mean, and I don't know if you, I'm sure you like the country life, and that's part of it. But you know as well as I do, in a lot of these areas, that's becoming a growth spot where people are like, well, there's no place else, let's go over there.
And it is a nice place. I will say it's surprisingly, you know, it's 20 minutes and you're downtown.
Right, so you can be rural and then come in and have the city life just like that.
And I think by putting a big compressor station, by putting a big industrial facility right in the middle, this is really going to inhibit, obviously, everybody's property values around there. You can't sell those houses now because nobody wants to buy, you know, so their property values are going to go way down.
Well, what's your other option? I mean, if they said, okay, listen, you know, we understand it and yours isn't that, but can you give us, what do you think would be the option of where this could go?
Like I said, you can trace where the compressor station has to be located in close proximity to the pipeline. They can't just put it anywhere. It has, because it's taking gas from the pipeline, and so. But you can trace where the pipeline goes on Google Earth. Again, great tools we have these days. And you can look on Google Earth. You can go to a lot of places, not too far either side, where you can find an area where you can draw a half-mile circle where there's no residences, nothing, and you could say, okay, they could put it there. It's in the middle of either farmland. A lot of times, it's in the middle of forest.
Part of the question is the land available for purchase?
Well, again, they can. That's the gas company can go. I think they'll make offers. They'll make offers, and I think if the offer is good enough, some of it is forested land that is not.
Have you been able, and this stuff is maybe more private because they go about buying it, how they, I mean, we talked about, we don't know who the owner was of the land that they purchased that they have now that they're going about, but would you imagine this was something that was up for sale, or do you think they shopped around and said, gosh, let's make an offer on this?
I'm not sure.
I wonder. Because if there's a difference there. If it was just happened to be for sale, like, hey, look, this is for sale, it's a good deal, let's buy it. Or if it's like, we can shop around, but boy, if we could get that, we're in the middle and it's the convenience of everything.
I think that they had to, they did well, I'm not sure which, it's a chicken and egg thing. I'm not sure if they bought the land, because part of their filings with the federal government, they said, oh, we considered these other places in the Joelton area, and they have, you know, sort of a map with a whole bunch of blue squares showing the areas they considered, this land being one of them. But some of the others are, I think one of the others is By Faith Farms, which is Lori Burkhead, who started this whole process, who did her homework when she got a certified letter. She says, that's my land. I don't, they never made an offer.
They never made an offer to me.
They never made an offer. But I think they'd already bought so they bought the piece, and then they said, well, we're going to do a study, and oh yeah, this one happens to be the best.
All right, because yeah, and again, we invited Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company to come on.
Yeah, that's total speculation on my part.
We don't know, but they declined to come on this morning. And again, you said that their home office is out of Houston. They're owned by the larger, they were purchased.
Tennessee Gas Pipeline is owned by Kinder Morgan. So really, this is a Kinder Morgan project.
You know, this kind of reminds me a little bit of several years back. You may not even remember, and it's on a different scale and maybe different regulatory agencies involved. But remember out in Trousdale County in Hartsville, where they have that, you know, a long abandoned nuclear power plant they had started building back there, and there was going to be a movement for a company that wanted to come in and start using that facility to store nuclear waste.
Nuclear waste, yeah.
You know, it's like, if there's one thing you don't want in your backyard, it's nuclear waste. But that area was so starved for jobs, they were desperate, and many of the people there were thinking, you know, I know it's bad, but it's worth it because we need the jobs. And it really started going that way. They hired PR firms. It looked like it was moving that way. And then the community really did come together and take a hard look at what exactly this would mean to them. They gathered together, and it created enough pressure. I'm not exactly sure how it finally fell apart, but I think the company realized that they didn't have the support anymore there. I don't think there were feds that had a vote on this one way or the other. But I'm just saying, a lot of people thought it was just going to be going in, rubber stamp because of the money and the jobs, but they did get together, fight it, and they went away. I wonder if the same type of thing comes into play here. The difference is they're not going to go away here. The pipes will always remain. The question is, under any circumstance, you think they are determined to put a compressor station in somewhere, or could this eliminate, say, okay, let's just bag the compressor station?
I think the only reason the compressor station, they decide not to build it at all, is if the economic reason went away. In other words, like I said, this is they're
doing this because there's money to be made.
There's money to be made, and if they can establish an export market. And there's a sort of, this is bigger than this is a bigger picture thing. But again, we read in Forbes magazine did an article about this, where the gas companies, there's so much gas now that the price of natural gas has plummeted. If you own a bunch of natural gas fields, that's not good for you because your price is low, because there's a huge supply and the demand has not increased that much. If they can create an export market, now suddenly demand goes up, and this is Forbes' word, not mine, the price of natural gas will skyrocket. And so if they're successful at getting an export market started, prices of natural gas will go way up, both here and abroad.
Is that from all the fracking, you think? The
reason we have so much gas now is the hydraulic fracking process, and that's the Utica and Marcellus shale up in West Virginia and Pennsylvania. That's where this gas, for years, gas used to go from Louisiana and Texas up to the Northeast, because they had gas and the Northeast didn't. With fracking, suddenly there's gas in the Northeast,
and it's coming down from West Virginia. Through here, ultimately, if it goes through it to China. Wow, interesting. All right, listen, we'll take a break. We'll be back with our final segment. If you want to join in the conversation, give us a call, 737-7587. If you just want to sit back and listen and learn, that's okay too. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.